Welcome to today's next podcast. I have a guest, Virginian pilot, sports columnist, Larry Rubama. How you doing, Larry?
Doing good, man. Doing good, James. Good, doing real well.
Man, thanks for coming on today. I know we've been talking back and forth for a while now. Appreciate you taking the time to come on today.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me, man. You know you're still a legend down here, right?
Man, they forgot about us, man.
No. What the kids right now don't. Well,
Right.
we remember because y'all represented when it was difficult to make the playoffs. You didn't make the playoffs if you was 2-8. You had to be
Right.
only maybe lose one game to get in the playoffs. So no, I got much respect for you guys.
Right. Thanks, man. Definitely. And it's funny because the year we won, we lost 2 games. So we thought we won't in. And I think we lost to Western Branch, and I believe it was Deep Creek.
Yeah.
And a nail bite us with those guys. So no way we thought we was in it. And I think that year we had just switched to Division 5.
Okay.
So we was in 6 originally, and then we ended up having to go down to 5 because I think the attendance went down.
Okay. Yep. Right. Yep.
But appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on again. A lot of praise from people down the way about you. I know you've been there now going on 23 years with Virginia.
23 years. I can't believe it. I still can't believe it.
Long time, man. Long time.
Yeah.
Definitely. And, well deserved, I'm sure.
Thank you. Yeah, they asked me 3 years ago to be a columnist, and I was just talking to my boss about it, and I didn't want to do it. I was like, no, I'm good. I let me just write stories. And then when he went to my editor, and she was like, no, we really want you to do this. And I'm so glad I took the opportunity because it's enabled me to branch out and write stories that can't be hit on sometimes, that you can't just do in a regular story, and able to hit issues, dealing with, especially young Black men, issues dealing with women, issues dealing just different things that allow me to find my voice and be able to tell stories. And that's what it's all about.
Right, man, because we definitely need it. And definitely, I know when I was there, most of the columnists was white.
Right.
None of the guys was really, African-American guys. Those guys were great, but it was different, when you sitting across from someone that looked like you. So
definitely different. And I think I also, when I'm talking to the athletes, if we're doing an interview, I can then pull them to the side afterwards. But look, the way you answer that question, no, you can't do it like that. You've got to be, because nobody else is going to tell them.
Right.
That's one of the things I really go out of my way to not only talk to the kids that I interview, but also go to high school classrooms as well as college. I'm at Hampton University. I'm going to Norfolk State. I'm going to the different high schools around our area to let these kids know, man, you have to represent yourself in a way that's going to be that people are going to say, okay, they know they got their head on straight. And that's crucial in this business because nobody will tell you.
Right, man. Especially like today, it's different from when I came through and when you came through. Like you got social media now, right? And eyes are on you all the time. And these kids don't realize. I mean, we see it a lot where somebody say something, singing a song, right, with some language in it that they shouldn't be saying, but they post it on social media and they come back because people looking at you.
The bad thing, the worst thing about it is game day comes and the whole week goes on. Kids are putting stuff on there that they shouldn't be putting on there. And I just try to tell kids, I said, look, count to 10 before you hit that. And I tell them, before you send, is it gonna embarrass you? But more importantly, it's gonna embarrass your mother, your father, your grandparents.
Right.
That's what you gotta remember. And then they think, oh, okay, yeah, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Leave the talk for the field. Leave the talk for the field. Just do what you're supposed to do on the field and on the court, and you'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
Man, I'm telling you, man. Can you imagine? Look, James, can you imagine if you would have had Twitter and all that kind of stuff when you was?
No, not at all. Hey, man, I was talking about that with some of my college teammates. They was like, man, could you imagine if we had like social media back there? I was saying, no, dude, can you imagine? Because Joe Paterno would have went crazy.
Joe Paul would have played. Oh, man.
Yeah, he would have went crazy.
Yeah.
He would have just banned all us from social media.
The way he was, he wasn't gonna play that. No,
He would have like, no, nobody can speak to them. I mean, because we already had, even then, we still had to go through, the communications department before we did it, before we got on anybody show, TV, interview, whatever. So I can imagine if it was social media.
I look at now how it is. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine. No,
right, definitely. So, man, tell me about how did you get in, being interested in sports?
Wow. Okay. Growing up in the Washington D.C. area, I played baseball and basketball with my sports, and one of the churches I attended down there was called St. Augustine's. It's a real big time African American Catholic church, and my mother made me transfer. I say made me. I went from Falls Church High School to Good Counsel High School, which is very, in that area. Good Counsel is very well known for its athletic.
Right.
And so a woman came to our class and they had a what do you call it? They had a professional day where they wanted to find out what kids wanted to do when they grow up. And she went around the room and she told everybody, I said, I'm gonna be a professional baseball player. And everybody else in the room said doctors, lawyers, all those real, So she came back to me. She said, well, if you didn't make it as a professional baseball player, what would you do? I said, I'm gonna make it. She said, well, let me tell you this. Instead of, if you can't play the sport, you can write about it. I was like, what? She says, do you read the newspaper? I read the Washington Post, and back then it was Washington Star every day. That's the only thing I read. And she says, if you can't play the sport, why not write about it? Her name is Dorothy Gilliam. She's a trailblazer, was the first Black columnist for the Washington Post. I didn't even know who she was when she was speaking to me. And recently, within the last 3 years, I got connected to her and I told her my story. And she was just like, wow. Now I've been in this business this year. I marked 30 years as a sports reporter. Worked in Syracuse, New York, worked in Indiana, and now I'm in Hampton Roads. And, of course, I didn't make it as a professional baseball player, or I wouldn't be here, right? But, it was a chance. It gives me a chance to tell other people's story. That's what I say on Twitter is, me doing what I'm doing now allows me to tell other people's stories. And there's so many stories out there that I've been able to tell that I'm truly blessed.
Yeah, man, I think that's one of the big things, man. It's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of stories out there that need to be told. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people know I want to say the generic mainstream stories, but they don't really know a lot of the stories behind those stories, right?
Exactly.
So, which is, important to make sure we get out as well.
It was a story I never forget that, every year I have at least 2 or 3 that I write. And one of them I wrote last year was about a young man from Lansdowne High School who was born with no legs. I wrote the story about the young man, and at that time, he's struggling. He was getting through COVID, different things. The kid went on to win a state title in wrestling. After my story ran, he was on ESPN. He was on everywhere. And I interviewed him later. He ended up getting a scholarship to a Division II or Division III school, and I think it was like Iowa. But the fact that he even got that, nobody knew who he was. They just saw the kid, and they feel sorry for the kid. But that kid was driven. Won a state title, was all on the national and world. I saw his story. My story ran in like 8, 9 different languages. And so those are the stories. Nobody would, who knew about this kid. And so those are the stories that matter to me. Those are the ones that truly matter.
Right. Totally, man. I agree. So speaking of that, like, what is your favorite sport to report?
Football. And the reason why, not just because you're here, but the reason why football, it's once a week. One game a week. You build up to that game and then you play it and then you move on to that the following week. Whereas some of these other sports, they're playing 2 or 3 times a week. You can't write a preview for those games because they're happening all the time. But football is by far our biggest sport. It's its own thing. Yes, 757. It's the biggest thing around here. Football is it. If a kid, if a coach steps down, if it's football, we're going to write about them. If it's any other sport, it'll be a little brief. A kid commits to a school, it's a big story. Other sports, it's a little brief. And people don't understand it. When we have National Signing Day, all the other sports will complain saying, you do so much on football. I said, well, football that's the one that feeds us. That's the one that we get most of our hits. That's the one that people come to us for. And that's why I like football. Like I said, it's once a week, so you can really focus as building up to that game. And you can find better. I think you get a lot more feature stories that way as well, where you can really get into the athlete, go to practice, and talk to them because you have the whole week to build up. So definitely football.
Man, I totally agree. And I had this conversation with some friends about why is football so big in America compared to basketball and other sports. And most of the guys' feedback was kind of the same thing you said. It's once a week, right? So you got all week to build up to that game. And it's the ultimate game sport, right?
It is. It really is. It really is. And and the coaches love it as well. It is by far. It's not even close. Football is definitely the best sport to cover.
And it's also from player's perspective, when you go away to a Penn State or you go in the NFL and you got teammates and people from around the country, so and everybody is pumping their chest and you know, kind of rooting on their city and their high school and their leagues and their states, right? When you come talking about Florida and Georgia and Ohio and Texas and California, and we be like in the locker room too, hey, don't forget about us there.
That's right.
Like, don't forget about us. And it's so funny because people are like, man, there's so many athletes come out that area and it's small.
And that's the thing. Coming from DC, you see how big DC is and all the high schools we have. But you come down here and you see how small and how these kids, you know, the word they use now is grinding. And you see it. I mean, every year, I think one year we had like 150 kids going Division I football from Hampton Roads area. 1 year, in just 1 year. And overall, I mean, I guarantee you, if you go all three levels, it's way over 1,000. We probably got close to 2,000 athletes just from a 4-year, I mean, in school right now, who are in school right now that are playing football on the college level. It's really mind-boggling, really. I mean, talking when we used to have the different combines that came to town, I would talk to athletes, talk to coaches. First thing they said, 757, you got to go to 757 to find out what they got. See if you can get in there and find somebody. And some of those coaches have been done very, very well hitting this area. And then some are still trying.
Right, man. It's funny because I actually just had this conversation last spring. I was up at the Blue-White game.
Okay.
And, you know, some friends of mine are on the staff that played after me. And, you know, and James make himself, you know, accessible to all of us. So we all in there and we was having a conversation. I think they had the conversation a couple of days before I saw them. It was like, how do we get back down to Hampton Roads? It was like, because look, when we back in the day when you played, we had, you know, it could be anywhere from 10 guys on the roster from Virginia. There was like, if I recall right, your whole secondary was almost Virginia. Wow. And we trying to get back down there. But I know back then, Joe used to always speak at the Norfolk Sports Club.
That's right.
So he had relationships down there, not only when it was time for to come down there and recruit. He had people down there that maybe was talking for him to kids. And, you know, since he had built relationships with them, if they came to him for advice, you know, to those guys for advice, other coaches or whatever, it's kind of like, okay, well, you know, we know this guy, we don't know the other people.
Right. It's still strong too. Like I know for a while there, Lake Taylor was sending a bunch of kids up there left and right. And it's interesting. Either 2 or 3 years ago, I did a Where Are They Now story on DJ Dozier. And man, I tell you, it was an interview that I still to this day is one of my favorite stories to do because he really talked about it and then you know that of course that you know because I just missed you, but I heard all about you when you played here, and you just see like you said that what they call that pipeline that they were going to Penn State, and we got a couple kids up there now from Hampton Roads that are doing their thing. So I think it's coming. I think it's back.
Yeah, man, because I think, you know, you talk about DJ. I just spoke to DJ last week about coming out to the camp. You're looking at Keith Cogainers. I spoke to him last week in a text message back and forth. It's a bunch of guys, Anthony King, David Macklin from on the other side. So, you know, we all was on the same team together when it's talking about David and Anthony King. So our secondary was majority Virginia. We had a few guys from Northern Virginia up there. So, you know, they call us the Virginia boys.
And y'all can take much pride in that as well. I mean, you know, I mean, it's good to see. Like I said, and for me to watch the bowl game this past year and seeing, you know, the running back that we got from the area who's up there, and then the wide receiver from Maury High School. I mean, to see them up there doing their thing, man, it's good. It's good to see, and kids see that. You know, kids see that, and that helps promote that as well.
Right, man. And I actually reached out to both of those guys about coming to the camp.
Okay. Oh, man.
Because a lot of stuff that I wish I had access to do when I was playing, I'm trying to offer them guys that, but like, look, you know, come back and be in the community, show your face. People just want to see what you're doing, and just be a part of the community because, you know, those same guys you played with might be freshmen, sophomore, but so they can see you and that you came from the same place that they came from, you know, and give them a little bit of hope and give them a drive to push.
Yeah, especially, you know, I look at with Keandre Lambert, you know, he wasn't given anything. That kid worked hard and, you know, came from a, you know, tough background, and for him to see him on that field doing his thing, it's good to see, and he can then inspire those other kids who might not feel like, well, is this really going to be worth it? Well, if you put your grades together and you work hard, it can be worth it. It can be worth it.
Right, because I mean, he came on as a freshman and played
Right.
as a true freshman, and then he kind of got lost in the sauce for a little bit, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it was
Mm-hmm.
just a mental thing and just getting consistent, and
Mm-hmm.
getting familiar with the system to where now, hopefully, we looking
Yeah.
for him to be the man next year
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because he got all the tools.
He does. He does. He has all the two. And I mean, there was that one time, I forgot what game it was, but he caught that nice pass down the middle and took it to the house.
Right,
It's like, hey, that's one of our boys, 757.
right. Because I was at the bowl game this year when they played
Mm-hmm.
Utah, and he got that one down the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, both of them kids look good. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you talk
Yeah.
about, Katron, and
Man, fat man, man.
Fat Man is, man. And it's funny because I look at them play, and they got Nicholas, and they got two,
Right. Right.
tremendous freshmen, true freshmen. And my whole thing with this transfer portal today
Mm.
is like, I hope they understand how important they are to each other.
Right. Right.
Now you don't have to run the ball 30, 35 times. You can split it and still be successful, and then still the goal is to make it to the NFL and still
And
be
you're saving
healthy.
yourself, right? You're saving
Right.
yourself. You running on them. I mean, you wearing yourself out carrying like that for 4 seasons. No, that's good advice right there.
Right, man. And it's funny because most people don't even know Miles came from Penn State, running back at the Eagles.
Yeah, I
So
didn't know that.
he was the other running back with Saquon.
Okay.
So they
Okay.
kind of split time, and they both was first round draft in the same draft. So probably longevity helped, with some longevity that they didn't have to carry the ball so many times in college.
Yeah, you get some because you go to college, especially in the Big Ten, you're getting beat up. You're getting beat up. So if you got a chance to be able to split that time and still put your name out there, come on now. I mean, it's
I
that's a
feel you.
no-brainer. That's a no-brainer.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, because you figure, like most of the time, Big Ten backs a little bit bigger,
Right.
and
Right.
they're
Right.
gonna run the ball more so than SEC and the ACC, where they more throw, air in the air more so than on the ground.
Right.
But I mean, playing against Ron Dane and
Oh.
those guys every play, and you just got to be ready.
The one thing I'll never forget about, I covered Purdue University for 4 years. I was there when Drew Brees played his first 2 years there. And the one thing I'll never forget was when I went to an SEC school, it's nice and warm. Hey, look, hey, James, you know how, I mean, I was like, you know what? I mean, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Purdue, Penn State, you talking about Minnesota, you talking about some cold places.
It's funny, man. I had friends watching games when we would play from home, and they was like, "Man, it look like it's like 20 degrees. You don't have you don't have any sleeves on. You from Virginia, man? What you doing?" I would say, "Man, when you out there running around, you don't feel that." They said, "But it said it was 10 degrees, and y'all just running around with no sleeves, no nothing on." I said, "Yeah, it don't get cold till you get to the sideline."
Right. Or if you're losing, right? No, I'm just
Right. If you lose,
get a little more.
right.
But
And then you have to sit down for a little bit, but
right.
and then with Joe, oh my God, with Joe,
Mhm.
he was just so strict.
Yeah.
I can remember one day, my freshman year, true freshman year, we was playing someone, and I caught a guy running a post, and I
Mhm.
was looking. I said, I know the quarterback not about to throw this ball, and the quarterback threw the ball, so I break down and I basically like just crushed the guy, and I ain't even say that. I just stood over him, crossed my arm. Joe was like,
Uh,
"Come stand over here next to me. Ain't no need to showboat." Like I said, "Coach, I ain't say nothing." He said, "Yeah, but it's the same thing. Just great play. You supposed to
yeah.
make the play and
Yeah.
go out to
Yeah.
the huddle."
I miss those kind of coaches, though. You know what I mean? And if you had those kind of coaches, some of the stuff you see off the field is not gonna happen.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's a whole nother. We could talk all day on that one. But no, I mean But how they say, when you go to the end zone, act like you've been there before. You got
Right.
these guys now doing all types of things, and it's like, come on now,
Right, man. That's one of the biggest things I tell people all the time about Joe. And it's sad that what happened with Jerry
Yeah.
Sandusky, and so Joe kind of get, the blame for a lot of
Right.
stuff,
Right.
and kind of, forgotten about. But it was for him. It was always about coaching and teaching young men, right? It was never football was just a bonus, right? So because he didn't really care who you were, like if you didn't do what you were supposed to do in the classroom in the week of the game, you wasn't gonna play. And you could have been you could have been a consistent All-American first team or whatever. You were not gonna play, and he would use you as an example so fast. And just to let everybody else know, look, if I do it to him, I'm gonna do it to you.
Exactly. Life lessons, lessons, life lessons. And you go back and look at the type of players that he produced, not just on the football field, but after that, in life. And you see there's just a long list of people who are doing good things, doing great things.
Right. And I think that's probably what if he was here as that'll probably be the thing he's most proud of.
Yeah.
Right.
And so is I feel bad that what did happen because he was such a bigger person than that. You know what I mean? Right. And people just throw that in there. That's all they want to talk about. But they don't really about the lives he touched, the lives he changed, generations that he helped continue because of who he was as a coach. And for a lot of those guys, from stories that I hear, I mean, he was like that father they didn't have at home.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah.
I mean, because he had rules, and as an 18, 19-year-old kid, you like, why? Right. I mean, he had this thing where you couldn't have facial hair, like really have scruffy facial hair. So he had a rule: if you came to the locker room to work out, and you went in the locker room, and the weightlifting coach, if you had all the goatee, and he was like, you got 5 minutes to cut it. So then you got to go in the locker room and cut it with the with the clippers that we cut our hair off our feet with, because that's the only thing over there. So back in the day when you used to tape your ankle, you tape it directly to the skin, and so we would use the clippers to shape the hair, because if you had hair, it hurt. So so that was the only clippers over there. So the guys that's what they ran to use. So I never really have a hair thing. So I used to just be like, y'all just laughing. They be like, what you looking at? You ain't got no facial hair. Like, no, I'm good.
Bite it before you ain't got to worry about it. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just a lot of lessons, man. I tell my son, because the day, you go in these schools now, you see these kids with their hair all wild, and Joe would be like, no. And we used to be like, why? He was like, it's bigger than football. He's like, so, because when you walk out of here, I don't care what you did on this field, people gonna judge you.
That's right.
So he said, if you go in there looking like, hair crazy and all, they gonna judge you, right or wrong. And that's
before they get to know you. Yeah, before they get to know you. Yeah, before they get to know you. That's right. You're right.
Right. So, and
especially as African American kids as well as black kids. Right. You hate to say it, but that's how it is.
And then, I mean, I can remember even I think my senior year, a lot of guys wanted to wear cornrows, and he was totally against it. And he was like, but Larry Johnson, who's our defensive line coach at the time at Ohio State now, Coach Johnson was like, look, is a heritage thing for those kids, and it's a cultural thing. So I think if you tell them no, then it's gonna be pushback. So we need to figure out a way that they can do it, and you okay with it. And his thing was just to make sure it was neat. If it was like today, the kids today, the hair just crazy, it wouldn't have worked.
And there was Terrell Golden. I think when he left here, he had the cornrows. I don't know if he kept them when he went to Penn State or not. I'm not sure.
Probably not long.
Yeah.
Probably not long. Definitely. Oh yeah, definitely. What would you say is the worst part, of covering sports?
When these kids get in trouble, when I talk to them, I tell them, and I've done this a lot of times. Says, look, I'm gonna cover you when you do well. I have to cover you when you do bad. So so be sure you don't get in trouble. Different situations with kids either getting in fights or getting in trouble off the field. I don't like writing those stories, but we have to, and that's the worst. I just that's the worst, because you see they have an opportunity to do something. And then there's one mistake. We all make mistakes, but that one bad mistake that they did, it comes back and then it just ruins everything that they did before. Like we talked about, I mean, that one thing ruins everything else that you've done. And so I hate writing those stories, but unfortunately, especially the editors, when they mess up, they want us to write about those. And those are the ones I just don't like writing, but I have to as a reporter.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it as an athlete, you look at the relationship, and you hear people say it all the time. It's a love-hate relationship, right?
Right.
So, when we doing good, okay, everything is good. We're writing about good, but then as soon as the moment we do something that's not so good. And I
Right.
think the athlete and look at it as, okay, we've built a relationship over years.
Right.
Now I get in trouble and you write an article on
Right.
me, right? But which they don't look at it and understand. Well, I'm just doing my job.
Exactly. And that's the tough part. You got, and when I do a long feature on a kid that says, look, continue to keep your nose clean. I said, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but if you do bad, I'm gonna have to write about that as well. And so they know, 95% of them would definitely say, okay, yeah, I understand that. So maybe me talking to that one time will make them think twice about going to that party. Maybe they shouldn't be going to, or hanging out with that person that maybe they know they shouldn't be hanging out with. Yeah, I just that's my goal, man. I've written too many stories, sad cases about kids who just haven't gone on to do anything, and those are the sad ones, man. Those are the sad ones that you're just like, man, I know that kid's better than that, but who knows who he got caught up with that caused him to go that other way. And yeah, those are the ones I don't like writing those stories.
Yeah, and Hampton Roads, man, we have it's so much rich tradition, as we was talking about when you're talking about high school sports in general. When you look at track and field, you got LaShawn Merritt, right? The other kid that came out of where
there's one kid that came out Green Run.
Green Run. What was the other kid came out of Chesapeake over in man, I can't play football and ran track. Grant.
Oh, yeah.
And you talking about basketball, you're looking at Allen Iverson, Lonzo Mourning, J.R. Reed, right?
Right.
Ronald Carey, that was a hybrid of both, right?
Right.
Football, you look at, it's funny, man, because I tell people all the time, like, I didn't even know who Michael Vick was until he got to Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
And I said, because all you heard about on that side was Ronald.
That's right. That's all you heard about. Exactly. And it was interesting. I did a story on Michael probably 3 weeks ago. And, he talked about how he almost wanted to quit the game because they wanted to change him into a different quarterback. And he ended up staying true to, I'm so glad he did,
right?
And true to his form. It's like, and now he's able to, and we talk about making a mistake. He made that one mistake, and now he's learning, he's being able to use that to be able to talk to kids about watching who you hang out with. You know what I mean? And I just, I still get people who will get mad when I write a story about him, but I don't care. I tell myself, like, you never made a mistake. I know you're Jesus. You never done anything wrong.
Right.
And I just think his life, I never forget, he came and talked to Tommy Reeman's team at Lansdowne right after he got released. And Coach Reeman said, hey, look, I got a surprise for you if you come. And I went out there, and it was Michael Vick. And I was like, oh, wow, man, he's just getting out. And so one of the other reporters was there, wanted to talk to him. And they asked him questions that had, he's not going to answer that question. So right. I remember that he was training a kid, trying to teach the kid to be a better quarterback. And I went over there and said, hey, I heard you training such and such. And he stopped. And then we talked for the next 45 minutes. And I was able to get that story. And from that time forth, he knew what I was about. I'm trying to help these kids. And so every time he come to town, when he got with the Eagles, when he got with the Steelers, he allowed me to interview him. And again, just a couple weeks ago, he got in touch to the Quarterback Hall of Fame, and with some great people, including Doug Williams. And so again, like you said, I mean, these are guys who got positive stories, who can definitely help and benefit these young men we got coming up in Hampton Roads.
Right, man. Because to shy away from what happened is doing a disservice, right?
Right, exactly.
Even when you talk about Plex, right? So
right.
It was a mistake. I mean, and tell me what 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old kid not. I mean, because that's where we are at that time.
Right.
We make mistakes.
Yeah. Shoot, 25, 30 still.
I was about to say.
You know what I mean? Right. You 30 years old. I know we did some stupid stuff.
Right.
And them try to, people try to, like, I can't believe you. I said, oh,
And then I think it's so funny because people don't really understand the dynamics of it. Right now, you talking about a 25-year-old kid that's making millions of dollars, and and playing a sport that they love, right?
Right.
And just having the world at their hand is easy to make a mistake.
Very easy. Yeah.
And it's even easier now. You're gonna have to pay, and now when you pay, it's gonna be bigger than if it, because of who you are. Because come on, I mean, Ship Michael went to jail for dog fighting. I mean, I
Right.
know it's bad,
Right.
but should he went to jail? Maybe paid a fine or something like
Right.
that. But they
Right.
used him as as an
Well,
example.
exactly. Exactly. Well, just like with Allen Iverson, with everything that went on at
Right.
the bowling alley,
Right.
and I mean, he went. And both of them went to prison. Went to prison. Went to prison.
Yeah, Plex too.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Right.
And
Right.
he
Right.
shot himself. Like,
Right. Exactly.
but you knew that was gonna happen in New York. So
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
with them gun laws, they real strict. They don't play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me about how much time have you spent with Boo Williams?
Oh man, a lot. In fact, I just saw him last month at the Scope. They were having a basketball tournament, and the thing about it was when I was growing up in D.C., I knew who Boo Williams was. When I went to college in Ohio, of course, I knew the name, but I didn't think the aura that he has is amazing. Then when I first moved here, Hampton Roads, he took me out to eat. I never forget it. There was a seafood restaurant right there at the when you're coming through Hampton Roads and you come to Norfolk. There was a restaurant right there. It's now been shut down. And he met with me, man. We talked for about an hour. And from that time forth, the relationship I've been able to build with him, whenever I'm writing about a basketball player, I call him and say, hey, Boo, what do you think about this person? And he just gives me such insight. And then recently I got to do a story on him when, oh my God, I can't believe my buddy's name from Princess Anne who did the movie on Who is Boo?
Daryl Tao.
I can't believe I forgot Daryl's name that quick. And to be able to be a part of that and to be able to interview and just realize what Boo has meant to so many kids, how he saved them and just writing that story, man, it was awesome. I mean, he's a legend. You know what I mean? I mean, he's a true legend, a Naismith Hall of Famer, just a great man who's very humble, very humble. I mean, he built that complex over there and didn't want to, but put a track on the inside, which then helped attract people. And I just got the utmost respect for him and what he's done, what he continues to do, and trying to help people.
I don't think we realize, being Virginia natives, how important
Yeah.
Boo is to
Right.
the basketball community.
Right.
You see a lot of times, and you speak a lot of times to these big name coaches like Roy Williams and those guys, and they praising Boo. And I don't
Yeah.
think people understand and know the story, how he started his insurance company, and how he started doing the AU basketball in the Hampton Roads area.
Like I said, it's a name. I'll tell people now, people who aren't from here, and I said, yeah, Boo Williams. That's an actual person. I said, no, yeah, so he's a legend. Yeah,
Right.
he's a person. They don't realize, they just know the name Boo Williams. Yeah, the lives he's changed. And again, I can't stop saying, in the generations he's helped. Yeah, a legend, definitely a legend. Love talking with him too. Love talking with him. And he knows his basketball. I mean, I've done stories on John Gilchrist and all these athletes who have come through here, and he knows all of them, and he can tell you about those. Cam Thomas. I wrote a story about Cam Thomas before he got drafted, and Boo just when you hear from Boo, okay, then this kid is either legit or he ain't. And he's praised Cam Thomas. I said what? And now we see Cam Thomas drafted in the NBA doing his thing.
Yeah, it's funny because I tell my son all the time, I say, hey, you different than when I played. I said, right now, it's so watered down with different teams and different leagues, and you almost got to be careful because some people look at it as a cash cow.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly,
And I was
exactly.
like, when we played Boo, he was like, who's Boo? Because I keep hearing you saying Boo, so I told him who Boo was. I say, so you didn't try out. Boo went out and found who he wanted.
Right.
So if he
Right.
heard a kid can play at Inner River or whatever school, he would go sit and scout him. And at the end of the game, he would approach your parents about coming playing for his team. And he said, "Did you play for him?" I was like, I did. We did, and it was Plex and a bunch of us all played on the same team. We would be up and down, not 64 between Richmond and Raleigh, playing in tournaments. So I said we had a great time, and it was so funny because if you look in the room or in the van where we used to travel, more than half of the guys play football.
So okay.
So it was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, Boo was good dude, man, real good dude.
Yeah. And I was going, talking about that, to have a before, back when you played, you were told, hey, go and play as many sports as possible. Now it's either basketball or nothing, man. And I feel bad for these kids who have to make a decision like that. It's not fair to them. I know you'll have a lot of kids that the coach will tell them, no, you told me if I played football, I couldn't play basketball, or vice versa. And that's too bad. That's too bad.
My one of my coaches told me that. I said, well, I won't play for you then. Like, and it's funny, it's sad, man, because you talk to college coaches today, they don't like it.
Right.
They don't like it. It was like, these AAUs and these high school coaches telling these kids they shouldn't be playing one sport. They don't really like it at all.
And I when I hear that, it bothers me because, first of all, when you're playing that one sport, your muscles are geared to that one sport. When you play another sport, you're doing different things, and it shows just how much of an athlete you truly are.
Right, because I can remember at Indian River, we always went deep into December, and so we missed maybe the first 2 weeks of basketball. So by the time we get there, and I think we lost an important game in December. So, and we weren't there. So the other team was talking like, we beat. I said, yeah, y'all beat the basketball team. Like, it was 10 other people on the football team that came, and it was a totally different game once we came back. David Selby. So
yeah. Writing about it. Yeah, writing about his daughter now. Yeah.
Right. So Dave and Dave was straight cash talk on the field and the court. So. Wow. We had some great games, man. I remember we played Green Run. We was juniors, and Coach Cadillac was the head coach, and we always felt like the beach teams was soft, and we said it, and we would say it in the media and articles, and this particular Green Run team, they was loaded. I mean, they had about 11 Division I tip players.
That's their team. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we went in, and I think we played them in Kellum in the playoffs, and the game kind of went down to the wire. I think it was winning. We ended up winning 13-12. But before the game, it was just talking back and forth, and Plex was on one side, Lanier Washington was on the other side. So both of them 6'3", 6'4", can run. And I remember David say, "Look, JB, don't worry about me. Plex ain't getting no catches." And then on the other side, I had Anthony Kaysen, who was going to NC State. So Anthony said the same thing about Lanier. They're like, well, don't worry about us. You could just go roam and play the middle, help with the run. These guys not gonna get any catches. And they were just talking fast, but it was funny because everybody talking back and forth. So we had a good time.
I can imagine that game. How many athletes went on to
right. Because that's the team. They had Cedric Warren as the running back.
Right.
They literally had like 11 guys that was going Division I on that team.
Wow. And I think at the time it set the record. Yeah, it set the record. I remember. Yeah, from athletes going Division I. Man.
Yeah, you remember Coach Scott Johnson?
Yes.
So Coach was our defensive coordinator.
Okay.
And so he always come. He like, what you want to do? He asked me, what you feel like, what we gonna do? And I said, whatever you call, we're gonna do. So he was like, I said, well, don't worry. The guys told me don't worry about the two outside guys. I say, our guys now. So he was like, oh yeah, if they say that, don't worry about it then. So
I mean, the confidence that they had, man, wow, and they back it up.
Right, back it up. I mean, I think that was probably what separated us from a lot of the other teams, because I can remember that same year we was playing Norcom, and we was losing, and it was like 6 seconds left. So we called timeout. Coach Parker was making a call. All right, throw a pass here, and I was like, no. I said, actually, put me at receiver. Put Antoine Stooks at quarterback. I said, Antoine, just throw the ball to the back of the pylon. Make sure it stay in bounds. And touchdown at the end of the game. He was like, just that's what Coach Johnson looked at Coach Parker. Coach Johnson's like, hey, that's what he called. Hey, just let's
Wow.
go with it. So
And those are those legendary. Again, as I said before, these kids now have no idea
right.
how tough it was back then. You know what I mean? And the number of athletes that came out of here constantly. We're not talking about the ones, man, those athletes. Yeah, you're
a lot more. I mean,
yeah,
not even just the ones that made it, but it's so many ones that was really good that didn't or played on a lower level. That was it was a grind every week. And it's weird because I was trying to figure out why did they change the whole format?
I have my opinion. I think it's because the more classes, you multiply that by money, because you think
More
about
money.
Our area, the amount of money that they put in for basketball and for football. Oh my! But then I think the other big thing was the smaller schools were complaining. They wanted to have more of a shot. Everybody now gets a trophy. Whereas before you had those 3 classes and that was it. Now you got 6. So a lot of these schools who win the Division I, Division II, it's like, well, I mean, you didn't have much to have to compete against. But before, like I said before, I'll never forget when Kempsville went 9-1 and didn't make the playoffs.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was if I just saw the coach Jeff Beard, just saw him not too long ago. And then he said, yeah, another year we went 8-2 and didn't make the playoffs. And
Jeff Beard.
Yes.
Is it the same Beard? We had a Beard on our coaching staff too.
Yeah. Matter of fact, it sure was. Yeah, he played because he coached at Hickory, and yeah, that's the one. Same one.
Okay, so yeah, Coach Beard was one of our coaches in Indian River too in high school. So
yep,
I didn't know he was still coaching.
Yep, he's done coaching, but he showed up. I saw him. I forgot where it was, but he ended up at Kempsville towards the end of his coaching career, and I just saw him about last month. I went and did a story on the Deep Creek reunion. They had the first ever Deep Creek reunion, and he was there. He was one of the players there, along with Deion Dyer and James Anderson and some of those guys. I mean, again, you mentioned football. It was Indian River, Western Branch, Deep Creek when it came to the Southeastern District. I mean,
right. I mean, we had games against Deep Creek and Western Branch where tickets would go on sale on Wednesday, and they would say you had to come up to the school and get the tickets. And then we had games where they would bring in extra bleachers and put behind the goalposts at both ends. And you're talking about 15,000 standing room only, and it's literally standing room only. And it was amazing games.
And we don't have a lot of those. Every once in a while, you'll have a couple of those during the year, but it's not like that anymore. And that's what's lost. Yeah, it's really lost. I mean, you had, like you said, some of those games, especially when Percy was playing, Kevin Wadley was playing, those guys. I mean, you'd have some packed games, but now, I mean, you might have 2 or 3 games where it's really, really packed.
Right.
Yeah.
So, recently, the NCAA has, not even the NCAA, NILs. The state of Virginia has just proved that high school kids, I think it's May 1st or July 1st.
Yes, coming up soon.
Where they are eligible to participate in NIL deals. What is your thought process on that?
Well, I see how the NIL has already changed the college landscape. So can you imagine what's going to do? And let's throw it out there, recruiting wise for high schools now. The rich will get richer, and those other schools will just lose their athletes. And they say, you can't have any type of the school can't be represented. But we already know. I mean, I'm happy for the athletes, but on a sports wise, it's going to change it dramatically. Like I said, we've already seen how it's changed on the college level.
When you talk about college level with the NIL deals, how do you feel about it?
Now I want to look. You're a former athlete as well, Division I athlete, and so I would have, if I would have had it back in my day, at Ohio University, I would have loved to have tried to find a way to be able to make some money because back then you were, I don't know about Penn State, you probably had more than we did, but you got the basics, and so there was days I can remember going back to my room, the cafeteria is closed, you weren't getting no more food.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And so I look at it like that, I want to see the athletes be able to get what they need to get. But when it comes to overall, there's always going to be abuse in it. But And like I said, if I had the NIL back then, I don't know what I would have did. I could have found something to do and got me some money. But
I agree, man. I like the fact that they're able to make money. What I
yes,
don't like the fact is it. So when they first started talking about the NILs, it's totally different than what it is now, right?
right,
So when they
right,
first started talking about it, it was just okay. Kids can make money marketing,
right,
advertising themselves, like name, image, and likeness, right?
right,
Then it turned into universities having initiatives and running
right,
it and using it as a form
right.
of recruiting.
Exactly. And we knew that was going to happen, though. You know, yeah, because a lot of those guys, you got these boosters who find a way. Hey, look, we can get around this way. Let's do this. We can guarantee if you sign with us, we guarantee you get you a 6-figure contract, something.
And that's the part that's the problem,
Right,
right?
right,
So I had two guys, Penn State guys and Virginia Tech guys on it, and we talked about it because it was like, okay, now teams are using it as a form of
hmm
recruiting.
right,
We'll give you 12 grand a month if you come here to
right.
play. Like, what is? I mean, to be honest, what do they need 12 grand a month for? Like, they have no bills, they have nothing. You'll go right now to play football,
Right.
right? And if it's a situation where some kids got situations back at home, then maybe it's something worked out with the
Right.
families.
Right.
But to give them $12,000 a month, $10,000 a month,
A
5,000,
month. A month.
like for what? Like for what? And it's not, want to count the kids' money. It's just I just feel like it's been abused,
It's gonna yeah.
and they're
It's gonna
not
continue
really
to be.
using
It's gonna continue to be abused. I can remember when this is in the late '80s. There was a kid that played on our basketball team whose grandmother had passed, and back then they were very strict, and he could not. He didn't have the money to be able to fly back home to Philadelphia to go home, and nobody was. And if he did get money from somebody else, he got in trouble for it. Now you probably you can get you a jet. They fly you there to the funeral and pay for the funeral, fly you back, and and that's the thing how it's just how it's changed and how it's going to continue to change. James, can you imagine what it's going to be like 5 years from now? It's going to be. I mean, it's going to be off the chain. And you can't put the toothpaste back in the tooth. I mean,
you already opened it.
it's
It's
already
too late.
open.
Right.
It's gone.
Right.
Yeah.
And you should have did that before. You should have had everything in play before you launched and said that you
Exactly.
can now
Exactly.
you can't go back.
Free for all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm hearing kids who say, you know what, I wasn't going to go to that school, but this school told me they can give me this. I'm gonna go there.
Right. And a couple months ago, I think I heard Deion Sanders make a comment about Nick Saban. And he
Yeah.
said,
Yes.
hold on, now it's legal. Hold
Yeah.
on. So
Right.
now we can all do what you've been doing.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And
We
that's the
can all
point.
do it.
Exactly.
Right. Right. So now is really
Mhm.
even the playing field, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
now because we know a lot of schools, not a lot, but some everybody know who the schools was doing it, right?
Right. A lot of
That was
schools.
right. That those schools was already doing it, and you could
Right.
tell, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't a secret.
Right.
But now that everybody is able to do it, I think you can start to see much more parity
Mm-hmm.
and fluctuation as far as top tens, the top teams in the country.
Right. And, another, a coach I got to cover, Jim Boeheim came out and was very vocal against NIL. And it's like, well, these coaches are just doing what you guys have been doing all the time. Now everybody's able to do it. Everybody's
Right.
on a fair playing field now. I mean, not I say fair, but even. I mean, you got away with being able to do some of the things that you did that these other schools can't do. And we're seeing a perfect example now. Look at the NCAA tournament. These teams who are these upsets that are happening. It's because of NIL and the transfer
Portals, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
another whole problem in itself.
it is. Oh my goodness. I look at the number of athletes that we've had in the transfer portal just from Hampton Roads. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
One particular I talked to probably the last 3 years,
Okay.
same time of year.
Mm-hmm.
Season over, man, I don't know if I want to stay here, I want to leave. And I was like, look, you gotta stop. You gotta, eventually you gotta just, like play it
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
that's my problem with it. I feel like it allowed kids to run if
Right.
they don't get their way. right?
If this coach not playing me, if I'm not getting the playing time I feel I deserve, I'm gonna go somewhere else.
I'm gonna go somewhere else, which is okay. But if it's a legit reason why you're not playing and you're just not that good, then you need to learn to stay there and get better,
Yeah,
right? Because I
exactly.
think that's only gonna help you in the long haul.
And the kids, like you said, now, and the parents are the worst ones behind it as well. You know, I see on the high school level, I had a kid 2 years ago who went to 4 different high schools. 4 different high schools. James, 4 different high schools. And it's like, you know, well, and somebody had sent me a letter of another parent who was upset a bit by the way somebody ran his program. So he transferred his kid to another school. That school didn't work out. So he's going to, I mean, it's nothing for these kids to go to 3 high schools during their 4 years of high school.
And then they wonder why they're not really getting exposure.
Exactly.
Right. And, you know, I had college coach tell me about, you know, kids that transfer a lot. They don't even want to talk to them. It was like, because they're not really committed to anything.
Right.
And then they trying to get down to the real reason why they left. Like,
Right.
so why is this kid leaving? Like, what's the reason? Is it just because they don't get along? He don't like the coach? Or is it really that he not, like, what is the reason? Right. And so a lot of times I know they going to directly to whoever that coach is, like, yo, look, okay. And I think that's the thing with these kids to understand, that a lot of these guys got relationships.
That's right.
They either coach together before somewhere, or just that whole coaching fraternity where they communicate. That you gotta be careful. And I told the kid not too long, I said, be careful, because once you go in that portal, you can't go back.
No, you're done. Yeah. And I heard one guy was telling me, he says, if you're in a portal for more than 2 weeks and you're not getting no bites, you don't make the mess.
You done made a mistake.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right. So because, you know, if you could play, as soon as you go in that portal, everybody know they're gonna be on you. Yeah. Right. And so you got to be careful and make sure that's something that you want to do before you start jumping in.
And that's a perfect thing. You're right, because you just, you know, I think the other thing that bothers me as well is these kids who transfer in high school and don't talk to the coach about it. Don't be man enough to say, Coach, look, I'm leaving. The coach will find out from Twitter or Instagram. Come on, if you're going to be man enough to leave, then be man enough to tell your coach, I don't want to play for you. There's nothing you can say that can change my mind, but I'm not going to play for you. That's it. But these kids will leave and don't say nothing, and then the coach finds out about it. You know, I've heard too many bad cases. No loyalty whatsoever. None.
And that's the problem with it. And they don't understand, like, leaving relationships and making sure it's left in good standings, and not knowing when you might ever need something from this person, not physically or monetary, but, you know, whatever. I mean, because you never know who coaches contacting when they calling about you.
Exactly. And, you know, growing up, and I know you were probably at the same time, you don't burn bridges.
Right.
And I don't think they know what that word means no more. Right. They don't know, you know, don't burn no bridges. Just make sure if you're going to leave a situation, be upfront with that coach, let them know why I'm leaving, and then you go on. But to just not say nothing to that person, who I know a lot of these times these coaches are paying money for these kids for shoes, food, to go to camps, all these types of things, and then just leave that coach and not say nothing to them, you know, that's not good. That's not good.
Right, because I was told, like, a lot of times, you know, when coaches come in town, they might not even call you a coach. They might call coaches in the area to get character, or how's this kid?
That's right.
And if you done burnt a bridge with somebody and didn't handle something correct, now you got somebody talking bad about you.
That's right.
And when that start happening, the college coaches turning their head.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So you've been out there a while. You've seen a lot of talent. You've seen a lot of teams, great teams. What is I would say the best college, or the best high school football team you've seen?
It have to be that Lansdowne one with that Chris Beatty had, Devion Simmons, Percy Harvin. I mean, they had Damon McDaniel. I mean, they had 3 wide receivers that were like big time Division I. And I believe it was Percy, Damon, and Chris Bell from Granby that were in that top 3, and 2 of them were on the same team. That defense that they had was, I mean, just dominating. And then there's been a couple of Oscar Smith teams that were really, really, really good. The Oscar Smith team from, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, was just dominant. I mean, nobody could play with them. The only thing, again, I go back to the whole thing about, we went from 3 divisions to 6. So some of those teams, you just wonder, like, but with that Lansdowne team, I believe it was only 3 divisions then. And so they got to see the best of the best playing those teams from up in Northern Virginia who always bring it every year. I mean, every year they bring it. Every year they bring it. And so, yeah, I think those 2 teams were, yeah. But that Percy Harvard team with Devion Simmons, I don't know if the junior year team was better or the senior year team, but they were both phenomenal.
Yeah, that's what I was told. That team is pretty good.
Oh, it was loaded. It was really good.
Yeah, because man, my senior year, we got so tired of hearing about Hampton on the other side of the water.
Right.
And if you know the history, like my senior year, we played 9 games. So we initially, because we had just came off winning the state championship the year before, and Hampton did. So we had scheduled a game. Well, about a month before season start, they switched and put somebody else on their schedule. So then we wasn't able to fill the schedule at the last minute. And we was like, well, why they didn't play us? Coach Scott Johnson, like, they didn't want to lose. And he's like, they nationally ranked right now. So if they know it's gonna be a tough game, and they didn't want to play us.
And I've heard that on several other opportunity games as well, when both Hampton and Phoebus had a chance to play teams on this side, and they didn't. One I'll never forget was when Richard Morgan was there. He'll play anybody, and teams just kept ducking him. So he said, you know what? I'm going to go around the country and play those teams. If we lose, we lose. If we win, we win.
Right.
That's the one thing I respect about him so much, is he did not care. He wanted to play the best of the best. If you beat him, okay, you beat us. But if but he tried to play team, and he was the first coach to kind of really do that, to say, you know what, we're going to play anyone. He played that team. Oh my goodness. He played team Booker T. Washington. Oh my God, that team was loaded from Florida.
From Florida, I saw that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, and they took their beating, but they ended up going. I think they won a state that year.
He played DeMatha a few times too.
He played DeMatha. Yeah, played DeMatha. He played a team. I never forget. He went to Ohio, played a team at the Horseshoe. He played. He's played at least 2 teams from Florida. He played. I mean, he played anybody. Played a team from Baltimore. He played St. Francis.
St. Francis.
Yeah, up there. He went up there and played them.
But you got to, right? If you right. You feel like you the man, or your team is the guy down there. Eventually, you gotta cross over and start getting more recognition outside of Hampton Roads.
And when he did that, once he did that, then his team started to get nationally ranked, because he wasn't afraid to go play those teams, and then people got to say, oh, okay, Oscar Smith, okay, and that's how it happens. You get out there not afraid to play. Booker T. Washington, St. Francis, Venice. And then even the new coach, Chris Scott, playing that team from California. I can't think of the name of them now, but they're a powerhouse team. And so, you know what? Let's go and play them. Let's see what we're made of.
For some reason, that guy get a lot of bad publicity from.
He does. He gets a lot of flack.
Right. He got a lot of people. I'd have heard a few stories about Chris. I haven't met him personally, but my wife went to Ocean Lake, so she remember Chris from high school. But for some reason, he get a lot of bad publicity from people.
The one thing I know is, and I had talked to somebody before, when you're good, people aren't gonna like one way or another. So I never forget when Chris Beatty came. He didn't have many friends at all, but he kept on doing what he had to do. Richard Morgan replaced him. A lot of people didn't like the way he ran his program, and we see how successful he was. And now you got Chris Scott. He runs a program that everybody wants to beat. Everybody wants to beat them, and it's the same thing that Chris Beatty went through, same thing that Richard Morgan goes through, and same thing he's gonna have to go through. And that's just that way it is. That even when you're trying to do right, people don't care. They want to beat you. They can't stand you. They want to see you lose. So yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
Man, I saw that Western Branch and Freedom game.
Yeah.
That Freedom team tough.
Loaded.
They loaded. They
loaded.
Tough. Yeah.
Yes. When they came down here, I saw that team. I was like, who is this? I mean,
they tough.
Oh my, they tough.
Yeah, they it's about a mile from my house, and the guys went out. So let me go check them out and see what they look like. By the time I got in the stadium, it was 21-0. And it wasn't even 2 minutes off, about maybe 3 minutes off the clock.
Did they beat somebody? Did they score either 90 or 100 on somebody this year?
They have twice, I think.
Man.
But when they when I seen the team, I made sense why.
Okay, gotcha.
I was like, okay, yeah. I mean,
There's no
they
reason
got
why they
21
should have.
points up
Right.
before 3 minutes off the court on Western Branch in the first quarter. So I can see them scoring 100 points on somebody.
Wow. Right. Yeah, I got to see the team when they played at ODU. I got to see their game, and I was just like, wow, okay, because they were in the Division 6 championships. I got to see them after Maury had lost. I was like, wow, this team they're good. They're good.
I would like to see them play against Highland Springs.
Yeah, they'll get a chance now.
Oh yeah,
Highland Springs moves up.
they move up. Okay.
And so what that's gonna do now is, I feel the same region. We're not talking about state. Same region now is Oscar Smith, Western Branch, Highland Springs. Same region.
So they're gonna
James,
knock each other. They're gonna knock each other off.
Yeah. So whoever wins their region will probably end up going to win the state now.
Right. Mm.
Oh, it's gonna be, and it's gonna start this year. So it's gonna be,
it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna
definitely be fun.
It's gonna definitely be fun.
So over the last 23 years, what are your most memorable games covered or interviews covered?
Getting to know LaShawn Merritt. I remember him when he didn't even have indoor track. I remember he went to the Penn Relays and was watching in the stands with me. And to see that kid go on and be one of the greatest 400-meter runners in the history of track and field, phenomenal, really phenomenal. Just watching how he came through, it was really good. To see Western Branch's track program, to be where Claude Tukeni took him and where he took him to as one of the greatest track and field programs around, year in and year out. I'm looking at, I'd say to see Daree McCain, what he's done over at Maury High School. They were really struggled as a program, and how he's consistently got those teams to keep playing throughout. I love to see that. In basketball, when I got to see Kenny, they call it what the Pig, to see him win that title at Lake Taylor, that was special to see. Same school, Hank Sawyer. When you see a field and you see the team on the other sideline that has 120 kids, and you look at Lake Taylor's side of the field and they got about 28, and of those 28, probably only about 20 play, man, it just does, to win 3 state titles the way he has, amazing to see what he's done, to see those coaches. I mean, yeah, every time, I sit there and look, I'm like, man, they got like 120 people over there. He ain't got 28. He coming out there, he gonna play. He not gonna change the way he coaches. He gonna do what he does, and he does it. To see what Phoebus has done with their programs over the year, the last 15 years in football, and now just continuously at the top all the time. Oscar Smith in football, what they've done. I mean, it's just so many great stories that I've seen. Amazing athletes that I've been able to coach. It's so hard to put it in one way, but I still say the greatest athlete that I've ever seen. I never got to see Allen Iverson. Never got to see Ronald Curry, but I got to see Percy Harvin, and he did it in football. He brought the same thing in basketball. Led them to, they didn't win the title, but they went to the championship game. And then what he did in track, that boy, he won. I mean, he didn't even train. People don't realize he did the 100, 200, 400. Okay, you can 100, 200. You can expect that from a guy who's fast, but he comes over there and then takes a sport like the long jump, and then wins the triple jump, and then wins the 4x1. I mean, he was just amazing. The greatest athlete that I've seen, and I've seen a lot of them. He reminds me of a guy that I've ran against. Eric Metcalf went to O'Connell High School up in the DC area. Who I'm running against him. He did it in football and did it in track. One of the greatest long jumpers in the history of track and field. But to see what Percy did, still by far is one of the greatest athletes that I've ever seen. And he could have been good in baseball too, they tell me. So you're looking at baseball, basketball. I mean, track and field for sure, football for sure. What he did in basketball, and then I hear he could do it in baseball as well. Unbelievable.
And Eric Metcalf had a long career himself.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Definitely.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And did it. And he came to me this one track meet. He was a 100, 200 guy, long jump, and he came up to me, and I ran the 300 hurdles and the 400. He says, "Man, guess what I'm running today?" I said, "What you gonna do?" He said, "Man, I'm running the 400." First time he ever ran the 400, that boy ran 48. First time, and I was like, "Oh man, hey." I'm glad I moved to the hurdles and didn't have to run against him after that because he was phenomenal. But yeah, Percy Harvin, I would say, yeah, he was one of the greatest athletes I've seen in Hampton Roads. And I know you had some back in your day, and since from 2000 on, I would definitely say he's probably the best athlete that I've covered.
Yeah, man. A lot of my friends say the same thing. They said from 2000 on, he would probably be the best that
Yeah,
they've seen so
yeah,
far. They was like, if we had to, open it up through the
right,
90s, he would definitely be in their top
right,
5.
right, right.
But definitely that says a lot because there's a lot of talent coming
A
out of
lot of
there.
talent, a lot of talent. I mean, think about the players that you, Plaxico. I mean, you talking about to do both those sports. I mean,
Right. Dre Bly.
Dre Bly, exactly, another one. Right.
Right. Allen
And
Iverson, talking about Ronald Carey on the other
yeah,
side.
right.
It was just loaded, man. And every week you had to play. You had to come
Yeah.
in and ball. And it was no nights off, literally.
Yeah, especially because you can't lose. You lose.
Right.
Okay, these guys now they can lose a game and still make the playoffs.
Right. No, it was definitely no. You had to come every night, and if you didn't, it was gonna show. I mean, and that happened to us once or twice where I think we was overlooking the team, and we had Western Branch because they always kind of felt in between us and Deep Creek.
Yeah.
So it was always, and and we knew they was always solid. We knew, you always had to come, and correct when you was playing them. But you know how it is. You take it one game at a time, and then a lot of times I think we was like, okay, we ain't worried about Western Branch, and then we get in there. Next thing you know, we down 14 and halftime.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now we gotta fight to get out of this hole, and then we can't. So then Green Run and Booker T back then had some good teams. Lake Taylor had some good teams. Norview had some good teams.
Right.
With James
Right.
Whitley and David Martin and those guys. So it was always a battle. And we talk to this day, man. It's so much excitement around that time when we was all playing. So definitely appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Man, anytime, man. I enjoyed it. Anytime.
Looking forward to seeing you at the camp and talking about doing some stuff about the camp too as well. So
we're definitely looking forward to that as well.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks.
All right.